are these people?
Substack is doing some shenanigans. Um, that our favorite co-founder of INN, Indie Left, has some stuff to say about. He wrote this Substack on Substack to talk about Substack. Um, he says, "Not you too,
To
Substack.
bitch on Substack.
Stay out of promoting content. Be a platform, whatever a platform is. Um, Not the first to say it, but platforms should not pick winners among its users, but if so, help the people who need a boost the most." Right? And he wrote this on September 11th, not too long ago. Um, he writes, "Here we go again. I have been incredibly hopeful about the potential and possibilities of Substack, a platform and community I've come to enjoy being a part of and encouraged many others to participate in, but I have some serious concerns about it at the moment, and I'm worried that I am setting myself up to be heartbroken. Long ago, before the platform evolved with chat, notes, and more, three large independent publishers, in the form of Glenn Greenwald, David Sirota, and Kevin Gostola, set up here and then left for different reasons, but it started me wondering why. I was a little sad and disagreed with their decision to bail. Two went to Ghost, the third to Locals. I even tried to convince one to give Substack another chance. Based on all the new functionality, they chose to stay where they are for now." So, Substack is leaning into corporate media personalities. I don't know if you've heard this, Collin, but this recent post to Notes by Hamish McKenzie, Substack COO and co-founder, showcased a lot of the big names they've attracted to create Substacks of their own, gaining notoriety for the platform. I love that the founders and executives are engaged in publishing and accessible. I thought they were listening too, but now I'm not so sure. So, here's Hamish, right? As other platforms move away from politics or pour fuel on bad dumpster fires, we are leaning in. We want to make 2024 the Substack election. We're making big moves to do that, starting with the hire of Catherine Valentine, a star comms professional from the Washington Post and CNN. That's who they are putting in charge of the Substack election.
Yay.
Yay, corporate. Yay. So, Indy writes, "It hurts to see Substack give a boost to the creators who need it the least, celebrating their presence here and using them for their fame, which was generated using corporate-sponsored TV, radio, and newspapers, which are partially responsible for the polarized discourse throughout much of the political world, and corporate media also was the driver behind many of the smaller independent publishers moved to Substack in the first place." Here's Indy replying to Indy. "Basically, the only newsletters featured are famous names from corporate media. This is deeply disappointing. All of these names featured, save for a couple, have been part of the problem of spreading propaganda on behalf of the corporate state and are always USA awesome by default."
Desert Mantis in the chat asked, are these the same people that called Taibbi a blogger when referring to his
To Substack
Yes.
writing. I think probably partially
Yes.
they at least agreed
Yes.
with Rachel Maddow in that case.
Yes.
So now they've hired someone from the Washington Post and CNN, the elite of corporate media, to lead their politics initiatives. Do you think that person will be amplifying independent creators that either didn't emerge directly from corporate media or that don't have massive audiences already here? Do you think they'll be promoting anti-duopoly messaging or third parties' independence much, if at all? My guess is likely not. So here's this article he's quoting. "As we spread the word that Substack is playing an increasingly important role in the political world, we're thrilled to announce that we have hired Catherine Valentine, a communications professional from the Washington Post, to lead our politics initiatives. At the Post, and before that, CNN, Catherine earned a reputation as a sharp thinker with brilliant instincts. At Substack, she will work with politicians, candidates, analysts, and policy experts across the political spectrum to help make Substack the central place for thoughtful, rigorous conversations." So, also note in that paragraph who Hamish mentions politicians, candidates, analysts, and policy experts. But what did he glaringly omit? Other people publishing on Substack, regular people with observations outside the DC bubble. This feels very insular. Indy feels like a canary in the coal mine. In some ways, there are not many of us shouting loudly about the preferential treatment that people with famous names get. Thanks to Rich Slutsky, you might know him as Crying Grim, Robert Ubershit, sorry, Ubuschek, a little hooked on phonics on
Yes.
that name. I hope that's well enough. Sorry if I butchered. And Mike Hampton and others who have also expressed concerns about this on Notes, given that the on Substack post has close to 1,000 comments at the moment. Others clearly have opinions about this too. George on Substack writes, at Substack, she will work with politicians, candidates, and analysts and policy experts across the political spectrum to make Substack the central place for thoughtful, rigorous conversations. You hired an alum of CNN and the Washington Post to do this? Why? Will this platform just turn into another outlet for propaganda? Maybe. Indy asks, was this a foregone conclusion? This year, Substack has been spotlighting some of the bigger names on the platform. Brilliant Substack writer and Notes pugilist Rich Slutsky from Counterspin, Lies, Damn Lies, and Spin published 2 articles recently decrying why this is disappointing, but sadly not entirely unpredictable. It also does not seem to bode well for small independent creators looking to build an ecosystem of content and distribute it from one place here at Substack. So here's his Rich Slutsky's thing here. On Substack, this is not a post I feel I will enjoy writing. Normally, I have some niche topic that's very fascinating to write about from a consumer patient advocacy angle, and I am happy to make a strong, unequivocal argument for or against whatever the topic is. Today is not one of those times. Today is more just me sounding the warning horn yet again. Indy writes, we are both hopeful and want Substack to not work against us, but the warning signs are there. Spinning wheel, the printing press was a marvelous invention, wasn't it? Clean, properly spaced text on demand, easily replicable, with minimal tooling and knowledge required. All you realistically had to do was the typesetting, cranking, and handing out of dictum. It was one of the few technological inventions to, and links to the article down in the description below where you can find the links to these articles. But yeah, I think he's equivocating Substack to the printing press, right? And how you probably shouldn't, lock things out like that. Notice that I won't refer to the word writers, which Substack uses to describe the people who make content here. Calling all creators writers is very limiting and a little insulting to the video producers, podcasters, photographers, and musicians, among others, trying to make Substack their content home and distribution hub every day and week. This is a little nitpicky, sure, but it makes a statement to everyone who doesn't write regularly nonetheless. Indy says, man, what a gut punch. I don't want to have to look for another home, but if this trend continues, I will have to look elsewhere for a platform not helping further contribute to the gulf between the popular corporate media personalities and the obscure among its creators trying to build from scratch. So, anything to say so far, Care Bear?
I mean, I think we talk about this ad nauseum, but this is why we need to have our own shit.
Yep.
Like in media. I've actually started having conversations about that with Indy as to what that could look like for INN.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Crab said it. Every company goes down the shit-lip pipeline eventually. It's the most profitable. Yeah, money.
Yep.
So
profit ruins everything.
We've seen it on YouTube. We've seen it on Twitter, and now we're seeing it on Substack. And it's like, that's one of the few. Now, I not shit on it, but like we make fun of Indy for basically like with his love affair for it. But at the same time, it makes sense given that it gives like true independent voices an outlet where mainstream media will not play or like show any of their content at all. Desert Mantis in the chat also said, I read Caitlin Johnstone, Erin Brockovich, John Mersheimer, Aaron Mate, Berchenheimer, Adam Mate, Deb Armstrong, Danny Haifong, Violin, Scott Ritter, Einen, among others on Substack. Yeah. So like even us, we plan to do more of that stuff. Like we're able to write and not be censored. And shout out to Brett Wilkins, who we had on, who is a writer for Common Dreams. He mentioned this. Like, there's certain articles that will be edited, because it may not be mainstream friendly.
Right.
He's even said that. And
Yep.
Common Dreams is considered more independent, quote unquote. So it's a losing battle. And I think really the biggest problem is, I think, in independent media is how to profit financially without essentially going in the mainstream camp where essentially they just kind of take over and it becomes shit livery. I don't know what that would look like. Again, that's something.
There's a thing in Japan, and I think it's a Eastern philosophy of some degree when it comes to business, but that you do one thing really well, right? Versus
Right.
trying to do 1,000 things. I think Substack, focusing on that writing platform, that article platform, I think is the best thing they can do. I think branching out into things like notes and whatever, while it does give a social platform on this platform, I think it's hard to compete with other social platforms that already exist, right? I think that takes away from what else you're doing. And if what else you're doing is going to be to push more establishment voices anyway, it's not looking good in that regard. And Indy wonders what options we have left. So I think he said, there was Ghost and Locals, which there's pros and cons to both of those. But he mentioned WordPress here. Compare what Substack is doing with the self-hosted version of WordPress, which literally provides a framework to create whatever you want without any engagement, support, or boosting from the creator of the WordPress publishing platform. Automatic, right? So I have been avoiding moving to WordPress because it is a beast to maintain the most up-to-date version, find the right plugins, keep them up to date, and their site builders are clunky compared to the interface here. He replies to Rich, not bailing yet, but this is definitely not helpful to the people who start from nothing without a corporate media resume and following. Hope Hamish is paying attention. I am sure I speak for many who won't say anything. They'll just disappear or disengage, begrudgingly making preparations to move back toward WordPress. So, however, if Substack is going to go this route of being a champion for the corporate media personalities that are part of the reason why we are where we are politically in this country, I'll have to start looking elsewhere, as content that questions the accuracy of the security state will rarely, if ever, be supported. Hamish even noted recently, when a prominent WordPress site moved to Substack, they know who their competition is, right? So Hamish says here, the New Statesman has abandoned its old WordPress-based newsletter platform and became the first major publisher to distribute its newsletters entirely through Substack. Well, that's very smart of them. Well done, at Harry Lambert. Right? So, appreciating that. Hamish is. So, Indy replies, please, Hamish McKinsey, please stop me from going to WordPress. Convince me you're not going to be promoting much better funded competitors, further disadvantaging independent content. Don't promote the corporate media personalities who used to scoff at Substack. They don't appreciate this platform and will move on the minute it is no longer the hot thing. It makes much more sense to showcase the smaller independent newsletters that made Substack what it is today. SO to Miles Baker and Chris Best, maybe they have something to say here. Shout out. What are your thoughts about a platform amplifying its largest creators who came from corporate media? Sound off in the comments below. You can do that in the comments here as well, or go to the link in the description and comment there. So, but yeah. So anything you got to add?
Not really. I think I said what I needed to say, but yeah, I don't know. It's censorship, in matter of speaking. Uh,
Uh,
shout out to Indy for writing that
yeah,
Substack.
that he with
Um,
his fat thumbs can't type.
uh,
Um,
but um, but yeah, I think it's becoming a losing battle, and yeah, I mean, this is kind of the result of just being an independent media. It's not independent anymore
yeah,
because, as we know, anything you're doing the right thing, well, speaking in truth, is going to be censored or going to be taken down. So they can't have that. But then the most important thing is money. Like people are not going to pay. People are going to pay for a narrative that they want to promote. They're not going to necessarily pay for a narrative that challenges people and empowers people to do something in terms of especially fighting back against this censorship, which I think is very ironic compared to what, if you go into journalism, that's what you're supposed to do.
right.
So,
Well, and this to me is the problem with just growth in general, right? You know, if your constant focus is to grow your numbers, grow your viewership, in this case your click rate for a Substack, you know, it hurts you as far as how good your platform is, you know.
right.
So,
And we've seen this here. It's just
yeah,
like a lot of people that we know in the space with the stories that they're well, not right, but the stories that well,
choose.
I can't even call it stories, not stories. It's not stories that they cover. It's just beefs and personality fights and
Yeah.
trending topics that they report on because that's what's going to drive the algorithm. That's what YouTube favors.
Yep.
And
Growth for
I'm
the
not going to
sake of
say
growth
names,
is,
right?
if you're just
I'm
going to
not going to
collect
say names.
resources,
I'm
like
not going
you
to
already
say names,
go ahead.
but we had people say that we do this for a hobby. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Because we actually want to talk about real shit and we actually do want to talk about stuff that is actually empowering to people and kind of shows, like look at the stories tonight. Like we want to talk about real issues. Like and our thumbnails, even if you look at them, generally kind of reflect that.
Yeah.
So but yeah, that's not popular and that's fine for us. Well, fine to a point. We want to obviously want to grow, but we want to have quality work that we're able to produce as well.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, I think the question is where we're going to do that because even with YouTube, one thing about YouTube is that it's international, so that I know like if like generally if people are watching me here, people are watching us in Europe, people are watching us in Africa, whatever. It's global. So like we have access as long as people know about us. Like with the other platforms like Rockfin or Rumble, like depending, they're not as well known, especially like in the global South yet. So you're gonna lose a ton of your audience if you primarily um stream on those channels, unless if you're really popular here, um, versus doing it on YouTube where you get. But again, even with YouTube, you can only talk about certain things unless you get strikes, or they can just straight up nuke your channel just because.
Yep.
And I've seen that happen to people before, like no strikes or nothing. They just nope, you're done. So no rhyme or reason.
When it's also
But yeah, I think
people constantly chasing just headlines, which like I don't know about you, but I kind of pride ourselves on reading the whole article here. You know,
Well, looks like we got ourselves a reader.
we do have some readers here. In fact, thank you, Bill Hicks. But yeah,
I mean, there's nothing. Yeah, there's nothing wrong about that. I know people who, I know channels that just read Reddit
yep,
stories, and
mm-hmm,
those are really popular.
yep,
Obviously, that's usually drama based, but People
Yeah.
are willing to hear the drama. So like, so I mean,
What?
that's also new. No, I gave that to you. So
Yes.
I think, but
What?
but yeah. So ongoing problem. I
Yep.
think that you guys know about it, but yeah, we're getting less and less ways to spread truth and do the content that we want because censorship.
Yep.
Again, thanks, Biden.
Oh,
But
what a crazy world we live in.